The sun of Zerath Prime hung low, painting the silver plains in shades of dying gold. Smoke rose in long trails from broken ships and shattered machines. The great war between the Terran Expeditionary Force and the Zerath Dominion had finally ended. The ground still trembled with echoes of battle, though all that remained now were ashes, wreckage, and silence. Commander Arlen Drake walked slowly through the ruins. His armor was scratched and dull, covered in dust and the scent of burning metal. Around him, other human soldiers searched for survivors, collecting the wounded and counting the dead. But Arlen wasn't searching for victory. He was searching for meaning. He had seen too much in the last week. Cities turned to glass, fields turned to graves. Humanity hadn't come to Zerath Prime to destroy. They came to defend their new colonies. But war, once started, had no clean side. Arlen stopped when his visor picked up movement among the wreckage. Something in or someone was still alive. He raised his weapon and stepped closer. The movement came from a pile of broken Zerath armor, glowing faintly under the fading sun. With a cautious hand, Arlen pushed aside a twisted metal plate. Beneath it lay a Zerath warrior, her body covered in silver-blue scales. She was taller than a human woman, strong even in her wounded state, her tail coiled weakly beside her. Her chest plate was cracked, revealing a deep burn across her shoulder. Her breathing was rough, uneven. When she opened her eyes, golden and slitted like a cat's, Arlen froze. He had never seen one alive this close. The stories said the Zerath were cold and ruthless, and a race bred for conquest. Yet this one looked terrified. Arlen aimed his weapon just in case, but before he could speak, the alien's voice came through the translator built into his armor. It was broken, trembling, but clear enough to understand. "Please don't kill me, human. I'll warm your bed if I must." For a moment, Arlen didn't move. The words didn't make sense. They sounded like something from an old myth, not real life. He looked down at her confused face, her trembling hands, and realized what she meant. The Zerath had been told humans were monsters, that they killed prisoners, that they took their enemies as slaves. Her words were not an offer. They were a plea. Arlen lowered his weapon. "No one's going to hurt you," he said softly. "I'm not like that," she blinked, uncertain. "You it will not kill?" He shook his head. "No, you're a soldier. You fought for your people. That's enough." The Zerath let out a shaky breath and looked away, her pride and fear clashing behind her golden eyes. Arlen opened his emergency pack and pulled out a small water capsule. He placed it in front of her. She stared at it like it was a trap. "It's just water," Arlen said. After a moment, she reached for it with a trembling hand. When she drank, the water spilled down her chin and she made a low sound, something like a hiss and sigh mixed together. "What's your name?" Arlen asked. She hesitated, then said, "Saraka, daughter of General Kothan." Arlen nodded slowly. "Your father led the orbital strike, didn't he?" Saraka's eyes darkened. "He is gone, burned in your fire from the sky." "I'm sorry," Arlen said quietly. "War takes everything from everyone." She looked at him strangely, as if not expecting sympathy from a human. "Why do you speak kindly to an enemy?" "Because enemies don't have to stay enemies," he replied. For a while, neither spoke. The wind whistled softly through the twisted ruins. The sun sank lower, leaving long shadows across the battlefield. Arlen scanned the area. The temperature was dropping fast. The nights on Zerath Prime were cold enough to freeze metal. He looked at Saraka. She was shivering now, her scaled skin not built for the sudden chill. Her armor's heat regulators were shattered. If he left her, she would die within hours. Arlen sighed. "All right," he muttered to himself. "Let's get you out of this mess." He moved closer and Saraka tensed. "What are you doing?" she demanded weakly. "Helping you," Arlen said simply. He knelt beside her, pulling out a thermal blanket from his pack. "You'll freeze if you stay here." "You would share warmth with me?" she asked, disbelief in her voice. "Do you see anyone else offering?" he said with a tired smile. He wrapped the blanket around her, making sure it covered her injuries. Then he sat beside her, the two of them surrounded by the silence of a dead battlefield. The stars above them burned cold and distant. After a long time, Saraka spoke again. "Your people fight differently," she said. "How so?" "You fight for something unseen. Not just orders. Not empire. You fight for home." Arlen nodded. "That's all we've got, really." "In our empire," she said softly, "we are told humans are savages. That you destroy everything you touch. He looked at her with a faint smile. And what do you think now? She turned her head toward the stars. I think your kind destroys less than mine. A soft silence followed. It was strange. Two soldiers, enemies only hours ago, sitting under the same sky, sharing warmth and quiet conversation. As the night deepened, Arlen checked his communicator. No signal. The main base was too far for transmission through the heavy ion clouds above. They were stuck here until morning. He leaned back against a broken piece of armor, tired but alert. Soraka watched him for a long time before finally speaking again. You spared me, she said. You could have killed me easily. Arlen shrugged. Didn't feel like it. Then why do you fight at all? He looked up at the stars. Because if we don't, we lose everything. Our homes, our families, our future. We fight so maybe one day we don't have to. Soraka was silent. She understood those words more than she wanted to admit. After some time, she said, When I said I would warm your bed, it was fear. That is what we are told humans demand from the defeated. Arlen glanced at her. I figured. Don't worry about it. She frowned slightly, confused again by his tone. You are strange, human. I get that a lot, he said with a small grin. The cold wind swept across the plain again. Arlen moved the blanket to cover more of her. She hesitated, then slowly shifted closer, not from affection but from survival. Her scaled body radiated faint heat of its own. It was strange, yet somehow peaceful. The stars of Zereth Prime glowed brighter as the night grew quiet. Far away, lightning flashed across the distant mountains. Soraka's voice broke the silence once more. When I was young, I was told humans have no mercy, that you eat your dead and laugh while planets burn. Arlen chuckled softly. We tell the same stories about you. She blinked, her pupils narrowing. Then maybe both our kinds are fools. Maybe, he said. But fools can learn. For the first time, a small sound left her. A low, rough chuckle. It was almost like laughter, though unused to such a thing. Your words are strange, she said. But they calm the fire inside. Arlen looked at her curiously. You mean anger? Yes, she said simply. Anger keeps us alive, but it also makes us blind. That's true, Arlen said. Maybe peace starts when we stop trying to blind each other. Soraka didn't answer. She just stared at the sky for a long time, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight. Hours passed. The cold deepened. Arlen dozed lightly, keeping one hand near his rifle out of habit. Soraka's breathing steadied beside him. The night was peaceful, a strange peace born from exhaustion and understanding. When dawn finally came, the first rays of light touched the broken battlefield. The fog lifted slowly, revealing a new day on Zerath Prime. Arlen woke and stretched, the blanket still half covering them both. Soraka opened her eyes, blinking against the light. You still alive? Arlen asked with a small grin. She tilted her head. Yes, still alive. Thanks to you, he nodded. Then I guess we both won yesterday. She looked at him, curious. You won the war. I lost everything. How is that the same? Arlen stood, brushing dust off his armor. Because you're still here, Soraka, and maybe that means something better can start. She said nothing, only watched as he called in a rescue beacon from his communicator. The signal flickered weakly, then caught. Reinforcements would arrive within hours. As they waited, Arlen offered her another water capsule. She took it without hesitation this time. When he smiled at her, she didn't look away. Somewhere in the silence between them, an invisible bridge began to form, one made not of treaties or weapons, but of something rarer. The morning air on Zerath Prime was cold and sharp. A faint orange light spread across the battlefield, touching the wreckage with a strange beauty. Commander Arlen Drake stood beside the wounded alien warrior, Soraka, as the first Terran dropships appeared in the distant sky. Their engines roared softly, echoing across the plains. Soraka's golden eyes followed them, and her body stiffened. Your people are coming, she whispered. What will they do to me? Arlen looked at her. They'll take you for medical care first, then maybe to a secure camp. A cage, she said quietly. Arlen didn't answer. He couldn't deny it. When the dropships landed, a group of Terran soldiers hurried out, weapons ready. They stopped when they saw the alien standing beside Arlen. The team leader, Lieutenant Grant, frowned deeply. Commander, is that thing alive? Grant asked. She's a prisoner, Arlen said firmly. Injured. Needs medical attention, Grant scowled. Sir, regulations say enemy combatants must be restrained. You can't just— I said she's injured, Arlen interrupted. Treat her like any other survivor. The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. Some muttered quietly, but Arlen's rank silenced further argument. 2 medics approached carefully, scanning Soraka's vitals. She stood tall despite her wounds, her pride barely holding together. When they tried to place metal restraints on her arms, she looked at Arlen with silent fear. Arlen shook his head. No cuffs, he ordered. Grant stepped forward, frowning. Sir, that's against— Then it's my responsibility, Arlen said. Grant hesitated, then nodded grudgingly. Soraka didn't speak, but her eyes said enough. She was grateful, confused but grateful. They boarded the dropship. Inside, the air was tense. The soldiers sat on one side, Soraka on the other, with Arlen seated between them like a bridge no one asked for. As the ship lifted off, the planet below shrank into a sea of silver and ash. Soraka stared out the window, her reflection cold and distant. Is your world always this empty? She asked quietly. Arlen followed her gaze. It wasn't before the war. And now, he sighed, now it's just memories and ghosts. She nodded slowly as if she understood all too well. Hours later, they landed at Fort Avalon, a human base built at the edge of the continent. The wounded were carried away, and Soraka was escorted to a containment room. Not a cage, but not freedom either. It was clean, with a simple bed, a light, and a glass wall that separated her from the hallway. Arlen came to visit the next day. She was sitting on the bed, staring at the wall when he entered. You came back, she said, sounding surprised. Of course, he said. You didn't think I'd just leave you here, did you? I didn't know what humans do with prisoners, she admitted. In our empire, we never see them again. Well, Arlen said, sitting down in the chair outside the glass. We try to do better. There was silence for a while. Then Soraka spoke again. Your soldiers fear me. They fear what they don't understand, he said. She tilted her head. Do you fear me? He smiled slightly. Not anymore, that made her blink. Not anymore. After what we've been through, he said. I think I'd rather call you a survivor. Soraka lowered her gaze. Survivor, she repeated softly as if testing the word. Days turned into weeks. The war had officially ended, but the air across the galaxy was still heavy with mistrust. Humans and Zerath both carried deep scars, physical and emotional. Arlen kept visiting Soraka. He brought her books translated into her language, simple ones at first. She learned quickly, curious about human art, poetry and music. One day when Arlen arrived, she was humming something faintly, a melody low and soft, like wind through the stars. What's that song? He asked. It's an old Zerath hymn, she said. We used to sing it before battle to ask the stars for strength. Can you translate it? She nodded and closed her eyes. Her voice was calm, almost fragile. The stars see all who fall, but they shine for those who rise again. Arlen smiled. That's beautiful. It is sad, she said quietly. It was written for those who never come home. Then maybe it's time someone wrote a new one, he said. She looked at him curiously. You think peace can be written like a song? He shrugged. Everything starts somewhere, even peace. Months passed. The Terran Council began peace talks with the remaining Zerath leaders. The first steps were small. Prisoner exchanges, medical aid, shared research. Still, the galaxy watched with suspicion. Many humans didn't trust the Zerath. Many Zerath called humans liars and thieves. But in a small way, something new was beginning inside Fort Avalon. Soraka had started helping the scientists understand Zerath biology. Her knowledge saved dozens of lives among other wounded prisoners. She no longer wore a containment bracelet. She walked freely inside the research compound under Arlen's supervision. Some soldiers still whispered behind her back. Some avoided her completely. But others, seeing her calm presence and gentle way of speaking, began to question the stories they had been told. One evening, as Arlen was finishing his reports, the communication officer called him. Commander, the council wants you at Central Hall tomorrow morning. They've requested Soraka too. Why? Arlen asked. She's to speak at the peace assembly, the officer said. She'll represent the Zerath prisoners. Arlen's brows rose. They trust her that much? The officer shrugged. Seems so. Maybe because you trust her. The next day, the hall was filled with people, generals, diplomats, scientists, and representatives from across the system. Cameras hovered silently, broadcasting the event to billions across space. Soraka stood near Arlen, wearing a simple white robe instead of armor. She looked nervous, but her eyes were steady. When her name was called, she walked to the podium. For a moment, the crowd murmured. The sight of a Zerath speaking in a Terran council was something no one had ever imagined. Her voice, when it came, was soft but strong. When I first saw a human, I believed the stories. I thought you were monsters who take pleasure in pain. I was wrong. The hall grew silent. Humans fight fiercely, yes, but not out of hate. You fight because you care, for your home, for your people, for your dreams. You do not destroy for joy. You survive, and that is something the stars themselves respect. She paused, looking toward Arlen. A human soldier saved my life, not because of duty, not because of power, but because he could not walk away from a life, even one that was his enemy. That choice showed me something my people had forgotten. Mercy is not weakness. It is courage. There was a long silence. Then slowly people began to clap. The sound grew louder, echoing through the hall until it filled the air like thunder. Arlen watched, his chest tight with pride. For the first time since the war began, he felt hope, real hope. After the speech, Soraka and Arlen stood outside on the balcony. The night sky above Earth Station shimmered with ships moving between stars. You did well, Arlen said. Soraka looked out at the stars. I spoke truth, she said. That is enough. Maybe more than enough, he said with a smile. She turned toward him, studying his face for a moment. Your people listen to you, she said. Even when they doubt you. They'll come around, he said. Humans always do it eventually. And mine? She asked quietly. Will they ever forgive? Arlen thought for a moment. Maybe not right away. But forgiveness starts with one person willing to try. You already started it. Soraka's golden eyes softened. You believe too much in hope, human. Someone has to, he said. For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet between them was not heavy. It was gentle, peaceful. Finally, Soraka said, When I begged you not to kill me that day, I thought my life was over. I thought my worth was gone. Arlen looked at her. And now? She smiled faintly, the first real smile he had ever seen from her. Now I think maybe it was just beginning. Weeks later, the first joint Terran-Zerath research vessel launched into orbit. On board were scientists and engineers from both species, including Soraka as the first Zerath ambassador. Arlen watched the launch from the base, standing tall under the bright sky. As the ship rose into the heavens, he couldn't help but smile. Humanity had once again proven what the galaxy often forgot, that their greatest weapon was not strength, but heart. Because even in the darkest corners of war, a single act of kindness could light a path toward peace.